When it comes to Shunsui Kyoraku, he's arguably one of the most likable characters in Bleach. And towards the end of the manga, during the Thousand Year Blood War, one of the most essential, making key moves as the newly appointed Captain Commander and going toe to toe with one of the members of the Schutzstaffel, Lil Baro. And Kyoraku ultimately took him down with the help of his lieutenant, of course. Now we're going to get into Kyoraku's Bankai and that battle, but what I'm getting at is Kyoraku has cemented himself as one of the powerhouses of the verse. And although his battle with Lil is one of the best in the series, I would have thoroughly enjoyed seeing Kyoraku fight more Sternritter. And given your guys' input, it seems you feel the same way. So today, I thought it'd be a ton of fun to pin Kyoraku up against different Sternritter and pretty much have him fight for his title of top tier. So for example, what if Kyoraku and Hashwolf had actually fought? Would Kyoraku have been able to take him down? How would Kyoraku go about interacting and taking down Sternritter such as Asnot, Mask, the Bambis? Think about those character interactions. Or even a Sternritter like Askin Naklevar. Would Kyoraku run into any roadblocks, or could he ultimately go through this extreme gauntlet of Sternritter and come out on top? Guys, a ton of you have requested Kyoraku-centric what-ifs, like, what if Kyoraku fought this Sternritter, or what if Kyoraku fought this Sternritter? So I thought we'd pretty much just combine all of those into just a massive Kyoraku battle royale against the Sternritter. Guys, we really accomplish a lot with this video. We get to really explore Sunsui's character, his abilities, his Shikai, his Bankai. We also get to explore the Sternritter, the Thousand Year Blood War. We're going to explain some of Sunsui's abilities in a way that I've never heard anyone explain them before, and it helps catapult him up the tier list as far as like Bleach characters and puts him up in that upper echelon of like god tier characters. Anyways, it's about to be a ton of fun. These battles are about to be a blast, so let's dive right into it. Alright guys, so let's start this off how we always do by painting a picture. The Quincy are invading Serete for a second time now, and the shadows of the Schattenbarike have completely engulfed Serete. The battlefield is completely shifted and morphed, and is now resembling a dark, icy, shadowy version of what the Lichtreich once looked like. Now guys, you know I'm a sucker for all the Quincy architecture. I love it. I could ramble on about it forever. But anyways, the reason why the second invasion is important is because there's only heavy hitters left on the battlefield now. So all the characters on the battlefield are at least captain class or higher when it comes to abilities. So this is important because there's no more scrubs left on the battlefield. Anyone that Kyoraku's going to run into is going to be pretty strong. Now we're going to do this kind of backwards. I know in the anime he runs into Hashwolf at first, but I want to save him for later. What we're going to do is we're going to run through some other Sternritter. So right off the bat, guys, let's go give Kyoraku a little bit of revenge for that eye he lost and have him go have a battle with Robert Akatron. Now, when it comes to Robert, I don't want to spend a lot of time on him, but what I do want to note is he is not a weak Quincy. He's actually fairly old and extremely strong. He's extremely fast. We see that he's able to get up after being hit by a post-royal training Byakuya's Bankai, which is pretty impressive. No scrubs getting back up from that. Now, in his first encounter with Kyoraku, I do want to note that Kyoraku was completely out of character in that fight. He never uses any of his Shikai abilities, so Katen Koikotsu is low-key reality warping, and it brings children's games to life. Now, I probably don't have to tell you guys how it works. Obviously, you've got Kageoni, Takeoni. You've got the one where he can hide out in the shadows. But what I'm getting at is in this second fight against Robert, who, like I said, is fairly strong, it's going to be a totally different battle. Robert's not running into Kyoraku, just the normal captain this time. He's running into Kyoraku, the head captain of the Gote. This battle's going to go completely different. Kyoraku's already fought Robert once, so he's already felt him out. He knows that he's going to have to finish this battle quickly, so he's going to use his insane speed along with his incredibly hacked Shikai to completely overwhelm Robert at this point. Now, as far as Kyoraku, he's probably just as strong, if not stronger, than a post-royal training Byakuya who would just completely fodder Robert. Anyways, what I'm getting at is this fight against Robert goes extremely quickly, and the new head captain gets revenge for his eye and takes out the first Sternritter. Now let's move into another fun one, another kind of mid-tier type Sternritter, and that's Kangdu. All right, so the reason Kangdu is in this video is because surprisingly, a ton of you have asked me to talk about Kangdu as far as in battles. And don't get me wrong, I love Kangdu. It's just we don't see enough of him for him to really grow on me. But I do think his ability is cool, the iron, and it's something that Kyoraku's going to have to think about, obviously, when battling Kangdu. So obviously, they'd have a brief little altercation where Kyoraku would learn that he couldn't cut Kangdu's steel or iron ability. And so what I think Kyoraku would do is he uses a Hado 73, some sort of like light Keto blade that he launches at Lil in their fight. And what it does is it just completely explodes the top of the building they're on. I mean, just slices through it. There's a massive light, if you remember right. People on the battlefield up there could see it going off. Anyways, what I'm getting at is once Kyoraku realizes, like, hey, I can't cut through this guy by normal means, I'm going to use this Keto blade, and I think that would be more than enough to bypass Kangdu's Iron Shrift and get Kyoraku the victory here. Now, before we move into our next Quincy combatant, I do want to clarify that this is a fresh Kyoraku each battle. It's not like he's roaming through the battlefield having to fight Sternritter after Sternritter after Sternritter. We are getting a fresh Kyoraku each Sternritter encounter. So anyways, just wanted to clarify that. Our next combatant is a really tricky one, but also very fun, and that's Bambietta with her explode ability. Now, there is a good chance that Kyoraku does have intel on some of these shrifts, so he may or may not know what her ability is. Anyways, he's still going to know, like, hey, I cannot get hit by those bombs. And what Bambietta does that's so interesting is she's not throwing bombs at you. She's throwing reishi, and whatever that high-speed reishi hits turns into a bomb. So it hits Shinji's chest cavity and completely blows it up. Poor Shinji. He probably shouldn't have lost to her. That's a video for a whole nother day. Shinji disrespect. But Kyoraku's going to be flash-stepping around the battlefield. He's going to know he cannot get hit by one of these, and he's going to try to find his opening. You have to keep in mind, Kyoraku's one of the fastest characters in the series, and just like he blitzed Robert and he blitzed Kangdu, he's going to have a chance at blitzing Bambietta if he can find an opening. And even if Kyoraku does get hit with her explode ability, Kyoraku's such a durable character that it's insane. Kyoraku looks like Swiss cheese in that fight against Lil. So I'm just saying he could probably take at least a bomb or two from Bambietta's ability to the point where it could create an opening and he could once again use Katen Koikotsu to come through the shadows and, like I said, ultimately blitz another Sternritter and Bambietta. Now, like I said, it would be a lot of fun. Kyoraku he'd be relieved that he's even running into a female and not another man. That's a whole nother topic. But the head captain in this fight's serious. He knows he cannot be hit. He blitzes around and ultimately takes down another Sternritter in Bambietta. All right, our next combatant is none other than Asnot the Fear. Now, a lot of people do not like to touch battles involving Asnot because his ability is so tricky, but hear me out with this, guys. In this battle, we know that Kyoraku's going to be accompanied by Nanao, and he's the head captain, so there's very good chance that he has intel on Asnot's ability. So he may go in there prepared with that Quincy ability Keto shield that Nanao can cast, and then hide behind that and strategically once again blitz yet another Sternritter. Now, a lot of you guys are probably saying, like, Sterling, you've said he's going to blitz every Sternritter we've talked about. But that's the thing. His speed compared to these mid-tier Sternritter is just on another level. Other than Robert, Robert has a speed-based shrift, I believe. But anyways, that's for another day. Kyoraku's speed in this battle against Asnot is going to be too much for Asnot. Like I said, combined with his Katen Koikotsu and Nanau's shield, and even without Nanau's shield, guys, if you remember right, Royal Train Byakuya comes down to help Rukia, and he's almost able to bypass Asnot's ability because it should have, as soon as he entered Asnot's spiritual pressure zone, it should have started taking effect, and it doesn't. So someone like Kyoraku, who's just as strong as Royal, if not stronger than Royal Palace trained Byakuya, may just be able to even bypass a mid-tier Sternritter like Asnot's ability. Now, I did say mid-tier, but hear me out. Asnot's still a fairly young Quincy, and his ability's somewhat fresh. And Kyoraku's just so much wiser, so much his combat strategy, everything's just on such a superior level to Asnot's, because even Byakuya is somewhat of a younger Quincy. Kyoraku's the cream of the crop. He was trained by Yama himself, and him and Jushiro were considered transcendent prodigies. Whenever they use the word transcendent in Bleach, pay attention, because that's one of the most ultimate compliments. Anyways, what I'm getting at is Kyoraku in this battle against Asnot, a mid-tier Sternritter, just has too many things at his disposal to be able to bypass that ability and ultimately take Asnot out. Now, like I said, I do love Asnot, and I do love his ability, and it would work on a Shinigami like Toshiro or Soifon, but not on a Shinigami of Kyoraku's level. Another win condition I could see for Kyoraku versus Asnot is Kyoraku reaching into his Shikai bag of tricks and using the shadow technique that he employed against Lil. And how it works is it almost creates like a multi-form technique, like an illusionary technique, where it makes multiple shadows of Kyoraku that could easily confuse Asnot and make it so his fear ability, at least in base form, would be channeled towards one of those shadows, and then Kyoraku could easily blitz him. Now, if Asnot's in his Volstanding form, it may get a little bit trickier for Kyoraku, but he ultimately still has the attack potency and the speed to easily take care of a mid-tier Sternritter like Asnot. Now, as much as I've hyped Kyoraku up, going into these next battles, he's going to have to use every skill, every ability, all the smarts, his Shikai and his Bankai, to be able to defeat his next combatant, which is Hashwolf. Now, guys, I think I speak for us all. In the anime, when those two come together and Nanao uses her shield and they talk back and forth and Kyoraku, announces himself as Captain Commander, I wish so badly that they would have fought each other. So this is one of those what ifs that I'm always talking about that I'd love to animate myself and bring it to life eventually in these videos. Anyways, I digress. This battle would be a ton of fun. Like I said, Kyoraku would have to pull out every stop. It's going to have to be just like the battle with Lil, because Hashwolf is one of those top tier Bleach opponents that he's extremely hard to go up against. And as Kyoraku and him are battling, it'll kind of start off slow as they're feeling each other out, because like I said, they're both extremely wise, old, smart characters, and their combat strategy is just superior than most characters. So they're going to be feeling each other out, and Kyoraku's eventually going to be like, okay, this guy's ability is extremely weird. Like, anything I do, like, it seems to be misfortune for me. I take damage and I can't hit the guy. So Kyoraku's going to put things together very quickly, and he's going to come to the end of his rope as far as his Shikai goes. Now, he would use it to try to create an opening, just like he did with those other Sternritter that I mentioned, but Hashwolf, with his shield and his speed and Blute, is just going to be able to survive a Shikai blitz from Kyoraku. So Kyoraku's going to be taking this damage from Hashwolf's shrift, and he's going to be at the end of his rope. And now this is where his Bankai comes into play. Now, guys, I love saying Kuraku's Bankai. Bankai Katen Koikotsu Karamatsu Shinju. I don't know. I had to do it, guys. Anyways, Kuraku would release his incredible Bankai, and this is where the battle would truly be on. Now, guys, I love how Kuraku's Bankai pretty much functions as a domain expansion from JJK. And hear me out. Specifically with Kuraku's Bankai, he puts almost an aura, I wouldn't call it a barrier like in JJK, but it's the vicinity of his spiritual aura. Like if you're in it, it all of a sudden gets gloomy, the spiritual pressure is weird, you pretty much get the chills, and you're like, what is going on here? Like, guys, when your Bankai pretty much makes the main character crap his pants, you know it's a big deal. Now, when it comes to Shunsui's Bankai, it pretty much is a play that manifests itself. So if you didn't know, it's a play between a man and woman. And long story short is the man betrays the woman's like, okay, I'll forgive you if we both commit. Anyways, don't want to say that on YouTube, but if we both go bye-bye together, then I'll forgive you. And at the very last second, the man chickens out, and for revenge, the woman takes the man's head. Now, anyways, that's how the story goes, plainly put. But in the form of Kuraku's Bankai, it becomes an extremely powerful story brought to life. So, like, Act 1 is the sharing of pain. Now, Hashwolf has been chopping up Kuraku throughout this whole battle. And now when he was battling Lil, I think it was part of his strategy to take as much damage as he did, because when fighting a foe this strong, Kuraku knew that he'd have to use his Bankai. So in this hypothetical fight with Hashwolf, he'd know that eventually he was going to have to use his Bankai. So he'd take all this damage almost purposely while feeling out his opponent, just so he could activate his Bankai, activate Act 1, and share the pain. Now, anyways, when I compared Kuraku's Bankai to a domain expansion, another comparison to the domain expansions is Kuraku's Bankai almost acts as a one sure hit. And hear me out, because after Act 1 of sharing the pain, you have Act 2 which is the pillow of shame. Now, I'm using English terms, but pretty much what happens in Act 2 is it just pulls all your resolve. Like, you're like, man, I feel terrible. What's going on? Like, it doesn't matter how strong you are. This Bankai is more than likely going to affect you in an intense way. And now next follows Act 3, which is one of my favorite parts of it, and it's explained as the Abyss, or it's called the Abyss, at least in the Viz translations. And how it works is, like I mentioned, the domain expansion in JJK, it almost forms like an area around you it literally warps reality to the point where you and your opponent both feel like you're in this abyss, this deep ocean, and you're sinking down, and you're scared you're gonna die. You're gonna run out of air, so you panic. Anyways, you lose all your resolve completely if you didn't already lose it in Act 2. And at this point, when Kuraku has you exactly where he wants you, he goes into Act 4, which is when the female finally gets her revenge on the male and takes his head. And what's interesting about this is it almost works as, like I said, a sure hit attack, a dimensional slash. Now, spoilers for JJK, like currently coming in 3, 2, 1, but it almost works like Sukuna's dimensional slash. Now, a lot of you are probably like, Sterling, no way. But hear me out. When Kubo draws that scene, the whole background's white. This slash goes straight through Lil, who has the X-axis, who's supposed to be impenetrable. Normal attacks are not supposed to hurt this character whatsoever, yet Kuraku's attack takes his head. Now, if it wasn't for Lil's complete hacks, then Kuraku would have won that battle, and he wouldn't have needed his lieutenant. But what I'm getting at with that long rant
was Kuraku's Bankai is insane. And like I said, it works as like a sure hit attack. And you go through all the acts, and eventually it ends with this insane spiritual pressure like blade. Ultimately, I believe this final act blade, whatever you want to call it, whether you want to call it dimensional or not, if it was able to cut through Lil, I do believe that it would be able to cut through Hashwalth, hence ending the battle. But this is going to be the toughest battle that Kuraku has ever had by far, just like the battle with Lil, and he's going to be on the brink of death by the end of this battle. Now, if some scaling changes and we see more crazy things from Hashwalth in the anime, which I predict we are going to see. I cannot wait. Anyways, if Hashwalth gets stronger, then we'll go back and take a look at this video. But ultimately, Kuraku's Bankai gives him a chance against just about anyone. This would still be such an incredible battle to see Kyoraku, the head captain, against the true heir of the Sternritter, Hashwalth, guys. It'd be absolutely incredible. I'd love to see it. And with this battle, Hashwalth could possibly come out on top as well, too. But Kyoraku, ultimately, with his Hax Bankai, could probably get past Hashwalth, but that's kind of where it ends. Like Sternritter, such as Gerard Valkyrie, a Schutzstaffel member, like Kuraku's not going to be able to take someone like him down. Now, don't get me wrong, Kuraku's still incredibly strong and very fitting to be the head captain, and he's up there in the god tiers of scaling, just not up there with like end of series Aizen, end of series Ichigo, Yuha, obviously, but he is in that upper echelon with characters like Uehara, obviously, hypothetically, Ukitake, but he's the quintessential Shinigami, like I've said many times, so it does give him the edge in a lot of battles. And obviously what I mean by quintessential is he's a Kido master, he's a Shumpo master, he's a master at Zanjutsu, he's mastered his Shikai, and he's mastered his Bankai, and like I said, there's a reason why he was picked as the captain commander. It's not just because of his extreme intelligence, his old age, not even because he's like a lower class royal, but it's because his power is insanely strong, and he was raised up and trained by the original head captain, the strongest head captain of all time, head captain Yamamoto. So that goes a long ways in my book. It pushes Shunsui up the list as far as god tier characters. I thoroughly enjoy talking about Kyoraku because, like I've said, his Bankai is extremely hacks. He's an amazing Shinigami, and just the interactions in these battles would be pure gold, and I would love to see it. Now, is Kyoraku the strongest character in Bleach? No, but he's definitely up there. Now, anyone that cares in those other battles with like the mid-tier Sternritter, if you guys want to argue and say like Sterling, like there's no way he could blitz those in particular Sternritter, well then go ahead and just whip out his Bankai in any of those battles, and there's no way that any of those mid-tier Sternritter are gonna survive Kyoraku's Bankai. Now, is Kyoraku as strong as head captain Yamamoto? No way, and there's a long ways to go. I'm actually working on a video when it comes to Yamamoto's strength. I can actually get him up in power as far as all the information we have to Royal Guard level. I think you guys are going to love that video. I loved talking Kyoraku with you guys. How do you think Kyoraku would do in these battles? How do you think he'd do against the mid-tier Sternritter? How do you think he'd do against people like Hashwalth? I want to know. Would you love to see it? Do you think Hashwalth would be too much for Kyoraku, or do you agree with me? What do you think about these JJK comparisons? Do you think Kyoraku's Bankai works like a domain expansion? I do think that the author of JJK pulled so much inspiration from Bleach, at least as far as the Bankais and the domain expansion goes, but that is yet another video for another day. I loved putting Kyoraku through the ringer, and we should do it again sometime with another character. Tell me down in the comments, what other characters would you like to see battle each other? We'll form a great what if and discuss it together, just like we always do. Guys, this was a blast. I really enjoyed talking the newly appointed head captain. He's one of the best characters in Bleach, and I'm willing to talk Kyoraku any day. Anyways, guys, this is Sterling signing out. Have a great weekend.